In the year 3125, new Terra blazed like a gem against the backdrop of the Andromeda Galaxy. Its twin suns cast a golden glow over the sprawling metropolis, where sleek spires reached skyward, kissing the azure firmament. The air hummed with the energy of progress and the whisper of advanced technology, a testament to human ingenuity. Orion Vega, 32, had traversed the cosmos more times than he could count, yet new Terra never ceased to awe him. As he stepped off the shuttle, the bustling spaceport greeted him with a cacophony of activity. Engineers and diplomats, merchants and explorers, all converged in this vibrant hub of interstellar commerce. Orion's gaze, however, was drawn not to the spectacle of the city but to the intricate dance of light and shadow that painted the cityscape. He was a starship pilot and explorer, renowned for his daring missions and insatiable curiosity. His reputation was built on the delicate balance between danger and diplomacy, a skill honed through years of navigating the treacherous waters of interstellar politics. Yet beneath the facade of experience lay a heart driven by a profound desire to connect with the unknown and to foster peace among the stars. Today, Orion's mission was particularly delicate. The Elysium, the most advanced starship ever built, was docked at New Terra's orbital station, its sleek hull reflecting the shimmering light of the twin suns. The ship was more than just a vessel, it was a symbol of humanity's quest for understanding and harmony in a galaxy fraught with tension. As he made his way through the spaceport's bustling corridors, Orion couldn't shake the feeling of anticipation that gnawed at him. The upcoming mission aboard the Elysium was fraught with challenges, the most pressing of which was the mediation of a brewing conflict between humans and the Zorathians, a formidable alien species. The stakes were high, and Orion knew that every word, every gesture, could tip the scales of peace or conflict. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden, unexpected encounter. As he turned a corner, he nearly collided with a woman hurriedly making her way through the throng of people. She was striking, with an air of confidence that was both alluring and commanding. Her eyes, a piercing blue, met his with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. "You must be Orion Vega," she said, her voice smooth and assured, cutting through the ambient noise of the spaceport. Her tone was laced with a subtle challenge, as if she were sizing him up. Orion extended his hand, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "And you are, Lyra," she replied, shaking his hand firmly. "Lyra Albright. I've heard quite a bit about you." Her name was familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. "Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Lyra. I assume you're part of the delegation." Lyra's smile widened, revealing a hint of mischief. "In a way. I'll be joining you on the Elysium. I'm a diplomat, but my role here is somewhat unconventional." Orion raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Unconventional how?" Lyra's gaze grew thoughtful, as if weighing how much to reveal. "Let's just say I have a knack for navigating tricky situations. And given the nature of this mission, I suspect you'll find my presence quite valuable." As they walked toward the shuttle that would take them to the Elysium, Lyra's demeanor shifted. Her previous lightness was replaced by a focused intensity. She spoke of the political landscape, the delicate negotiations ahead, and the underlying tensions between the human and Zorathian factions. Orion listened intently, absorbing every detail. Lyra's insights were sharp, her understanding of the nuances of diplomacy impressive. Yet, beneath her professional exterior, he sensed a personal stake in the mission, a layer of complexity that piqued his curiosity. The shuttle ascended into the starry expanse, and Orion glanced out the window, watching New Terra recede into the distance. The mission ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but with Lyra by his side, it felt as though the stars held secrets yet to be unveiled. As the Elysium came into view, its majestic form gliding silently through space, Orion felt a surge of both excitement and apprehension. The ship, a marvel of engineering and a symbol of hope, would be the stage for the coming drama, a drama that would test not only his skills but also his heart. With a final glance at Lyra, whose gaze was fixed on the starship, Orion prepared himself for the journey ahead. The galaxy was vast, and the stakes were high, but in this moment, with the promise of new beginnings on the horizon, he was ready to embrace whatever lay beyond the stars. Aboard the Elysium, the hum of advanced machinery and the soft glow of console lights created an ambience of serenity and purpose. The starship's sleek interior was a blend of high-tech elegance and functional design, reflecting the cutting-edge advancements of humanity's spacefaring age. Orion Vega marveled at the ship's grandeur. Feeling a familiar thrill as he stepped onto the command deck for the first time, Lyra Albright was already aboard, her presence commanding attention. She moved with a grace that belied the weight of her diplomatic role, and her confident strides through the corridors spoke of someone accustomed to both authority and intrigue. Their earlier meeting seemed like a distant memory as Orion caught sight of her now, immersed in a sea of diplomatic briefings and holographic projections. Orion. Lyra's voice rang out, warm and inviting as he approached. I was hoping you'd join me. We have much to discuss before we reach the Zorathian system. Orion joined her at the briefing table, where a holographic display projected a detailed map of the Zorathian star system. The complex array of planets, asteroid fields, and space stations shimmered in the air, a testament to the Elysium's advanced technology. Lyra's gaze was fixed on the display, but she looked up as Orion approached. I've been reviewing the latest intelligence reports. The situation is more volatile than we anticipated. Orion nodded, his eyes narrowing as he studied the projections. It always seems to be. How do you think we should proceed? Lyra's expression softened, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her features. We need to balance diplomacy with caution. The Zorathians are formidable, and any misstep could escalate tensions. I've been working on a proposal that could offer a compromise, but it requires careful negotiation. Their discussions were fluid, punctuated by moments of shared insight and unspoken understanding. As days turned into nights, Orion and Lyra spent long hours strategizing and preparing for their diplomatic mission. They delved into the nuances of Zorathian culture, their political landscape, and the delicate threads of the ongoing conflict. Through these intense sessions, a bond began to form, a connection that transcended their professional roles. One evening, after a particularly grueling strategy meeting, Lyra and Orion found themselves alone on the observation deck. The vast expanse of space stretched out before them, a tapestry of stars and nebulae that seemed almost within reach. The deck's transparent walls offered a breathtaking view of the galaxy, and Orion couldn't help but feel a profound sense of awe. Lyra leaned against the railing, her gaze fixed on the stars. Sometimes, I wonder if we'll ever truly understand the universe. It's so vast, so mysterious. Orion joined her, his eyes following her gaze. We may not understand it all, but we can strive to explore it. To bridge gaps, build connections. Lyra's eyes met his, a spark of something indefinable flickering between them. That's what drew me to this mission. The hope of finding common ground, of making a difference. Their proximity was charged with an electric tension, a silent acknowledgement of the growing affection between them. Orion's heart raced as he considered the implications of his feelings. Lyra's professional demeanor masked a depth of emotion that he found both intriguing and disconcerting. Lyra, Orion began, his voice hesitant but sincere, do you ever wonder about the personal sacrifices we make in the name of our duties? The relationships we forge and lose along the way? Lyra's expression grew thoughtful, her gaze softening. Every day. It's a delicate balance between duty and desire, between what we want and what we're expected to achieve. Their conversation lingered in the air, a testament to the unspoken connection that was forming between them. As the stars outside seemed to dance in response to their words, Orion felt a stirring within him, a mixture of hope, desire, and uncertainty. As the mission progressed, the moments they shared grew more intimate. Their conversations more revealing. Orion found himself drawn to Lyra in ways he hadn't anticipated. Her intelligence, her passion, and her vulnerability made her more than just a colleague, they made her someone he cared deeply about. Yet, beneath the surface of their growing relationship, a subtle undercurrent of tension remained. The political stakes were high, and the weight of their mission pressed heavily upon them. As they prepared to engage with the Zorathians, Orion couldn't shake the feeling that their bond might be tested in ways they hadn't foreseen. In the quiet of the observation deck, as they gazed out into the infinite expanse of space, Orion and Lyra stood on the precipice of something profound. Their journey was just beginning, and the stars held both promises and perils in equal measure. As they faced the unknown together, the line between professional duty and personal connection grew ever more blurred. Setting the stage for a tale of love, trust, and betrayal that would unfold among the stars, the Elysium sailed smoothly through the vastness of space, its sleek hull cutting through the stars with a serene grace. Inside, the crew bustled with activity, preparing for the delicate negotiations with the Zorathians. Orion Vega was focused, his mind consumed with strategies and contingencies. But a gnawing unease had settled in his gut, an unsettling feeling that he couldn't quite shake. One evening, while reviewing the latest intelligence reports in the ship's briefing room, Orion was interrupted by an urgent notification. A secure message had arrived, its encryption indicating high importance. With a sense of foreboding, Orion accessed the message, his fingers trembling slightly as he entered the decryption code. As the message unfolded on the holographic screen, Orion's eyes widened in shock. The data revealed a covert plan orchestrated by a shadowy faction within the human government, a plan that involved using Lyra Albright as a pawn in a dangerous game of political maneuvering. The documents detailed how Lyra had been instructed to manipulate the Zorathians to gain leverage, betraying the very principles of diplomacy she professed to uphold. The revelation hit Orion like a punch to the gut. His thoughts raced as he tried to process the implications. Lyra, the woman he had grown to care for deeply, was entangled in a web of deceit. The weight of the betrayal was almost too much to bear. He needed to confront her, but not before gathering more evidence. With a heavy heart, Orion made his way to the communications room, where he accessed additional encrypted files. The more he uncovered, the clearer it became that the stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. The fragile peace between humans and Zorathians was at risk, and Lyra's role in the scheme was pivotal. The ship's corridors felt colder as Orion navigated them. His mind a storm of conflicting emotions. He finally arrived at Lyra's quarters, the weight of his mission pressing heavily on his shoulders. With a deep breath, he pressed the intercom. "Lyra, I need to talk to you. Now." Moments later, Lyra opened the door, her expression a mixture of surprise and concern. "Orion. What's wrong?" Without preamble, Orion stepped inside and activated a privacy shield, ensuring their conversation remained confidential. "I've seen something I shouldn't have," he began, his voice tinged with anger and hurt. "A message detailing your orders from the human faction." Lyra's face paled as she realized the gravity of the situation. "Orion, I don't." Orion cut her off, his voice harsh. "Don't try to explain away what's in those documents. I know the truth now. You've been using our relationship to further a hidden agenda. You've betrayed everything we've worked for." Lyra's eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and desperation. "It's not as simple as it looks. The faction threatened my family. They have leverage over me, and I was trying to find a way to mitigate the damage." Orion's heart ached at her words, but the betrayal was too deep. "You should have told me. I trusted you, and now that trust is shattered. What's worse, the Zorathians are at the brink of war because of this." Lyra took a step closer, her voice pleading. "Orion, please. I never meant for it to come to this. I was trying to protect them, to protect us. If we can find a way to expose the faction's manipulation, maybe we can still salvage the peace." The sincerity in her voice was undeniable. But it was overshadowed by the gravity of her actions. Orion's resolve hardened. The damage is done. The Zorathians need to know the truth, and the faction must be exposed. I'll take care of it. Lyra's face crumpled, tears escaping her eyes. "I'm sorry, Orion. I truly am." Orion turned away, his heart heavy with the weight of the decision he had to make. As he left her quarters, the corridors of the Elysium seemed to close in around him. The mission was no longer just about diplomacy, it was about exposing the truth and restoring the fragile peace that hung in the balance. Back in his quarters, Orion activated the secure communication line, sending a message to his trusted allies. He outlined the evidence he had gathered and requested their immediate assistance. The time for action was now. The political landscape was on the brink of collapse, and he had to act swiftly to prevent disaster. As he stared out into the cold expanse of space, the stars seemed distant and indifferent. Orion knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger and difficult choices. But with the truth as his weapon, he was determined to confront the corrupt faction and restore integrity to the mission. In the darkness of space, amidst the backdrop of a galaxy teetering on the edge of chaos, Orion Vega stood ready to fight for what was right, even as the cost of betrayal weighed heavily upon him. The Elysium drifted silently through the void, its hull reflecting the distant light of 1,000 stars. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was charged with tension and urgency. Orion Vega stood on the command deck. The holographic display casting an eerie blue glow over his determined face. He had spent the past hours meticulously compiling the evidence needed to expose the corrupt faction and salvage the fragile peace between humans and the Zorathians. The crew was busy at their stations, preparing for the critical diplomatic meeting that could determine the fate of the negotiations. Orion's mind, however, was focused on the imminent confrontation with Lyra and the corrupt officials who had orchestrated the betrayal. The stakes were higher than ever, and failure was not an option. Lyra had been confined to her quarters, her access to the ship's systems restricted. The weight of her betrayal was palpable. But Orion knew that personal feelings had to be set aside for the greater good. The Zorathians needed to be informed, and the faction's manipulation had to be brought to light. In a small, dimly lit room, Orion met with his trusted allies, members of the Elysium's crew and a few key diplomats who had remained loyal throughout the crisis. He laid out the evidence in a series of holographic projections, showing the damning messages and covert communications that detailed the faction's plans. Here, Orion said, pointing to a particularly incriminating piece of data, is where the faction's manipulations are evident. Lyra was forced into a corner, and her actions, though flawed, were driven by threats to her family. One of his allies, a senior diplomat named Dr. Evelyn Frost, examined the evidence with a sharp eye. This is substantial. But we'll need to present it carefully to ensure that it's credible and that it doesn't further inflame the situation. Orion nodded. I agree. We'll need to approach the Zorathians with a full disclosure, showing them both the evidence and our commitment to rectifying the situation. As they finalized their strategy, a sense of resolve settled over the group. They knew that their actions could either mend the rift or widen it irreparably. The next steps were crucial, and Orion was determined to see them through. The diplomatic meeting was set in the main conference room of the Elysium. The Zorathian representatives, tall and imposing in their ornate robes, were already seated, their expressions a mix of curiosity and wariness. Orion and his team entered, the weight of their task evident in their solemn demeanor. Thank you for your patience, Orion began, addressing the Zorathian delegation. We have come to you with an urgent matter that requires transparency and cooperation. He proceeded to present the evidence, displaying the encrypted messages and detailed reports on the holographic screen. The Zorathians listened intently, their eyes scanning the documents with a mix of disbelief and concern. One of the Zorathian leaders, a regal figure with piercing green eyes, spoke. What you present is grave indeed. It appears that your faction has been manipulating the situation for their own gain. Why should we trust that this is not another ploy? Orion's heart pounded as he answered. We are committed to restoring trust and ensuring that such manipulations do not occur again. We have taken measures to address the corruption within our ranks and are prepared to work together to rebuild the peace. The room fell silent as the Zorathians deliberated. The minutes stretched into an eternity, the tension palpable. Orion's thoughts turned to Lyra, who remained in her quarters, her fate uncertain. Despite the betrayal, he couldn't shake the sense of loss and regret that accompanied her actions. after what seemed like an age, the Zorathian leader spoke again. "We will consider your proposal and the evidence presented. If your commitment to rectifying the situation is genuine, we are willing to extend a hand in cooperation." Relief washed over Orion, though he knew that the road to rebuilding trust would be long and fraught with challenges. The Zorathians' willingness to negotiate was a step forward, but the cost of the betrayal had left its mark. Back on the Elysium, Orion stood alone on the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. The weight of the mission's outcome and the personal cost of betrayal weighed heavily on him. The galaxy, with its infinite mysteries and challenges, seemed both daunting and hopeful. Lyra approached quietly, her footsteps soft against the metal floor. She stopped beside Orion, her presence a silent acknowledgement of the shared burden they carried. "Orion," she said softly, "I'm sorry for everything. I never meant for things to end this way." Orion turned to her, his eyes reflecting a mixture of sadness and resolve. "I know, Lyra. But the trust that was broken cannot be easily mended. We have a chance to rebuild, but it will require time and effort." Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "I'll do whatever it takes to help make things right." As they stood together, the stars outside seemed to promise a future full of possibilities. The journey ahead would be challenging, but with the truth unveiled and a path forward laid out, Orion felt a glimmer of hope. The cosmos was vast and full of unknowns, but with every challenge came the opportunity for growth and redemption. In the silence of space, amidst the echoes of past decisions and the promise of new beginnings, Orion Vega prepared to face the future with a renewed sense of purpose. The stars awaited, and the story of trust, betrayal, and redemption continued to unfold among the endless expanse of the galaxy.